Hey everyone, matching into today's video, we're going to have a look at the weather for the next 8 to 10 days in today's video. It's turning colder through the rest of this week, and that will stay with us over the weekend. I think next week will probably turn milder again, actually, and we may get some snow on Monday as a transition from cold to milder weather takes place. So I'll show you all the detail on it in a second. Just want to say about why I haven't been doing videos over the past few days. So if anybody doesn't follow me on Twitter or Facebook, they probably won't know that on Friday my father was taken gravely ill. He's still with us. He's still in a critical situation, but he's stable, and we're just hoping for the best. But thanks very much to everybody that sent their messages and sent all their kind messages and emails and all the rest of it to my email address, and also tweeted me, posted on Facebook. The response, as always, has been amazing. Everybody's very, very kind, and he's still hanging on, so I'll keep you posted, of course. Right, let's have a look at the CFS V2. I just wanted to start off with the 700 millibar height anomaly charts for January, show you how this model has got things wrong. We use the CFS a lot. This was the forecast from the CFS V2 for January in terms of 700 millibar heights back at the end of December, and at that time the model was going for a very deep trough of low pressure sitting to the north and west of the country during January. Remember, this is a mean anomaly, so the idea was for a trough to be to the north and west, a ridge down to the south and southeast, with the flow going something like that, bringing up very mild air from the southwest, from the tropical part of the Atlantic. This is how the model is sitting January now, and it'll, of course, we're well into January, so this month will be disappearing from the model output very soon. But this is the forecast for January now, as we've progressed through the first 10 days or so of the month. And notice all this red up to the north around Greenland, that's high pressure, with the trough of low pressure down to the south and the southeast of the country. So it's a completely different scenario, really, to what the model was predicting. This was the predicted pattern, again, for January back in December. This is how we're finishing up, and it's a very, very different pattern. So once again, the CFS V2, and it's the model we use most because there's so much information that you can get from it. But once again, the CFS V2 has got this a bit wrong, really, this month. So the temperature forecast for January back in December looked like that across Europe in those red colours, off the scale warm for many northern eastern parts of Europe. This is how with forecast for January now. So the west of Europe still generally a little bit mild on average, particularly France and Spain, but a very cold month actually for many parts of Scandinavia, western Russia, northeastern Europe, around the Baltic states, and to the east of Poland. Those sort of areas looking at really quite a cold January indeed. So the model really has not got this month terribly well at all, and as I always say, long range forecast is highly experimental. These models, whilst their accuracy has improved over the years, as the years have gone on, when I started looking at these long range models, particularly the CFS, which back when I started looking at it in the year 2000, 2001, I think it was AVN, something like that. So back then, the reliability of the model was horrendous. It has improved as the years have gone on, but it still is by no means terribly reliable at all. Right, let's get on with the forecast then. This is the temperature anomaly for the coming week. You can see that most parts of Europe from the 12th, 20th of January forecast to be below average, with the temperatures even into the west of Europe, around Bouchard and France. Temperature anomalies are going below average. The core of the cold is still across Scandinavia and northeastern parts of Europe in the coming week. The precipitation anomaly coming out a bit drier than average, so colder and drier basically sums it up for the coming week ahead. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles. Remember, the red line here is the 30-year temperature average, and we can see that all members of the ensemble are going to be below average for the next few days, so that's a little colder spell for the rest of this week and into the weekend. Those temperatures are dipping down, going below average, and that takes us into the weekend. And then as we go through the start of next week, remember dates are on the bottom of the chart for the start of next week, and a lot of scatter. The general trend through next week seems to be upwards. There are a few members of the ensemble that are wanting to keep the cold weather going next week, extend the cold. And that can happen sometimes when we get into a colder pattern, because the model always wants to default to our typical setup, which is westerly Atlantic driven. That is the default setting for our winter weather particularly. So when we're in a cold spell, the models are always looking to break us out of it and reset the pattern back to the default situation, if you like. So sometimes the models will be predicting a breakdown, and what will actually happen is that will stay cold longer than the models are expecting. But there's fairly good agreement there for a warm-up, a spell of milder weather to be coming along through the course of next week. But we have got several days of pretty cold weather to come before that happens. So this is what's going on right now, and I thought I'd just explain this because I haven't done a video since Thursday. So we've got low pressure clearing away to the east today, bringing down this strong, cold and showery northerly wind. Well, northwesterly. Here's the showers coming down with that, and you see some quite deep blue colours there, so some quite heavy showers. They're mainly rain showers, could be some sleet or snow over high ground, but mainly it's rain showers coming down from the north. We move through into Wednesday. We'll have perhaps a frosty start on Wednesday morning, but this trough of low pressure will start to move in through the course of the day. Through most of Wednesday itself, we should stay mostly dry, but there will be showery rain coming in from the west. And then overnight, Wednesday into Thursday, this could be our greatest chance of snow this week, because as the low pressure comes into the country and clears eastwards, it starts to pull the winds more in towards the north, and there's some really quite cold air coming down behind this low pressure, with still quite a lot of precipitation around Wednesday into Thursday. So I think Wednesday night, Thursday morning, there could be some snow around, mainly again over high ground probably, but I think as we go through the night and into the early hours of Thursday, there will be an increasing risk of some of that precipitation turning to snow. And then that low pressure clears away through Thursday itself, and we turn drier. So we'll have a spell of quite dry but cold weather then as we go through to the end of the week and into the weekend. So this takes us into the weekend with the GFS model, and you see high pressures building in there within cold air, so there'll be some fairly cold daytime temperatures, there'll be some hard overnight frost. Now, that will stay with us through the weekend, so quite a bit of dry weather over weekend with frosty nights and pretty cold days. As we go through into Monday, the Atlantic starts to try and break through again. So this is 6 o'clock in the morning on Monday, and low pressure's coming in off the Atlantic. You notice this elongation in the isobars though. This is where a weather front is coming in from the west. I'll clear that away. It's coming in from the west, something like that, coming against that cold air, and there's a stall going on. So as this weather system's coming in from the west, it's hitting the cold air and stalling. You see what actually happens is that in the end, the weather fronts and the low pressure just slip away to the south. That could well be a snow event on Monday. Difficult to say where, but the west will be most likely to see that. It's not really suggesting when it gets through into the east. It's a very long way off, and of course it may not come off like that. But certainly there would be some sleet or snow around there, persistent sleet or snow around there on Monday. That doesn't last much longer though with the cold weather, because go through into Tuesday we start to go back to the pattern we had in December, which is to bring these much milder southerly to southwesterly winds in off the Atlantic, and that really takes us through next week then, with milder air coming in. The winds are going back into the southwest, dragging up some really quite mild air indeed from the central part of the Atlantic. No doubt active weather fronts bringing more bouts of heavy rain across the country as well. And as we go through into Friday, that's how we finish up. Friday the 22nd, I should say, which is day 10. That's how we finish up with high pressure to the south of the east, low pressure out to the northwest. So very mild with these southwesterly winds. So after a cold week this week, next week, after potentially a snow event on Monday, next week turns in much milder indeed. This is the ECMWF, and again, same idea for the weekend, high pressure building in off the Atlantic, giving us fairly quiet weekend, but it is within cold air, so it's likely to be cold, particularly at night, with a fair amount of frost. The high pressure begins to recede as we go into Monday. Here comes the weather front moving in from the Atlantic, hitting that cold air, possibly giving some snow in places. There's again the suggestion of a stall taking place here between Monday, where we see the weather systems or the weather fronts in that sort of position, through to Tuesday next week, where we see the elongation in the isobars there, and going down to there. There's definitely a stall going on with those weather fronts as they're coming into that cold air, so there could be some snow around early next week. After that though, the milder air starts to push back in from the Atlantic, so the cold spell ends, or the cold snap ends next week. Southwesterly winds return, and by day 10, again Friday 22nd of January, it's much milder with the air coming back in from the tropical part of the Atlantic Ocean. And finally the GEM, that's in agreement with all of this. Well, a cold weekend with a lot of frost. The high pressure breaks down early next week, may produce some snow before the milder air gets in around Tuesday, Wednesday. And then day 10, same setup, which is high pressure to the south, low pressure to the north, and we're bringing those mild winds up from the south. Before I go, I just want to show you the stratospheric temperature forecast from the GFS for going towards the end of January, actually. So this is in the upper atmosphere, in the stratosphere, the highest level of the atmosphere over the North Pole. Blue is where we've got the cold stratosphere. When you've got a cold stratospheric temperature, generally you'll have westerlies through the mid-latitudes. Cold stratosphere goes with a strong polar vortex over the pole. So this is the sort of pattern that we've had all winter so far, with these deep blue colours over the North Pole, the milder yellow colours through the mid-latitudes, which has been milder temperatures. So this is the forecast going through towards the end of January. You notice what's happening here with penetrating milder temperatures into the North Pole. This is not a southern stratospheric warming, but it is quite a big warming actually here that we're seeing. And notice that the blue colours are being shoved down in towards the mid-latitudes. It really is warming up a lot towards the end of January across the North Pole. Again, I'll run you through that sequence and you'll see it's quite a dramatic change really, but it isn't a sudden stratospheric one, so I'm not sure how impactful it is. It's just a very gradual, over about a week, temperatures just continue to rise across the North Pole, and we finish up with really quite a mild stratospheric temperature there over the top of the pole. Whether that will be enough to bring us back into or take us back into a blocked setup and start to bring really cold air out of the North Pole for February, I'm not sure. You would tend to think that you want a much more rapid rise in the temperature over a day or two, really to translate back to intense northern blocking. But it is interesting that we see really quite a big warming there, albeit not suddenly, over the pole through the last week of January. So we'll monitor that, of course. But for the next week, I think we are going to have a bit of cold weather. It's going to be the coldest phase of the winter so far. There could be some snow as we go on through Wednesday night into Thursday, and then possibly on Monday as it tries to turn milder. After that, we probably go back into pretty mild weather, to be honest. And then we'll just have to see where we go from there. Alright, that's it for now, and thanks for watching.